We welcome in our good buddy Joe Davidson of the Sacramento Bee to talk some local football here, some local sports. And Joe, we spent some time during that commercial break over on the live stream talking about Sac State. Kenny and I got a chance to be out there this weekend, spend some time with the head basketball coach, David Patrick, who's going to be a big part of our show moving forward. We're getting all that worked out. But, man, that's a good football team, Joe.
Oh, well, kudos to you guys for going. And it is an excellent football team. And team is 5-0. Best start since 91, second best start in program history. It started in 1954. And the thing that's amazing to me that just really jumps out is it's the only team in college football this season, Division I, which is FCS, the Sac State UC Davis level, and the FBS level, the only one in America that has not trailed in a game this year. That's amazing. And I was talking to Coach Troy Taylor last night for a story that's running tomorrow. I said, well, how do you a lot of it's preparation and their practices are so crisp and efficient. And he also said, well, it's just more fun to play when you're ahead. And when you're trailing, it changes everything. You might get a little more anxiety in there on how you run things and this and that. But when you're ahead, you're really in control. And so to be able to do that is pretty amazing. And let's get more fans out there. I mean, you saw that half the stadium, 21,000 seating at Hornet Stadium was full, the home side. But the real challenge is to fill the whole thing up. And this week, the game is at Eastern Washington. Then Montana comes, ranked number 3 in the country. That's an ESPN game. So let's go, people. Get out there and check it out. I think it's a great backdrop to have fans there. But, college football doesn't sell anywhere in this state. Cal games don't sell out. Stanford, USC sometimes. UCLA, horrible attendance this year, and I hear this excuse like, well, there's so much more to do around here. There is, what I don't see a beach around here, so go out and watch a little football, because the high school games, we talk about this every week, guys. The high school games are overflowing with fans, great attendance, and not saying it has to be the same crowd, but there is an appetite for quality football, and Sac State's never had a better team.
Yeah, it seems like everything from Fresno down, they can do well in football, but Fresno up, we struggle a little bit. But I went to that game on Saturday night. That was the first time I've been to a Sac State football game, like I said, in almost 20 years. And I thought it was a really good time out. I really enjoyed myself. I thought the atmosphere was good. The vibe was good. Obviously, it's a good team, so that helps as well. But even the student body was out there. I pulled up a little late to the game, like maybe the game had started 10 minutes before. They still have people, a lot of student body people playing music, dancing, eating barbecue in the parking lot, tailgating. It seems like a good time out. Is it one of these things where maybe they just have to consistently be good? Now, I know under Coach Taylor, they've been doing it for a couple of years, but when you talk about changing the culture or establishing yourself as a fixture in a city or in a region, maybe we're talking 10 straight years of top flight performance. You think it's that, or what do you think? What do you attribute that to?
Well, that's a good point, Kenny. So before Troy Taylor took over, the team didn't do a lot over the years. I think they've only won 5 conference championships since 1954, 2 of them in the 60s, 1 of them in the mid-90s, and then the last 2, 2019 and in 2021, COVID wiped out 2020. And I think at this time a year ago, there were still some restrictions with COVID. And in Sacramento County, that's where Sac State's facility is, and so a lot of people still weren't going, okay, there's no excuse for it this year. So this weekend will be the 4th time in 5 weeks that the Hornets are on the road. Okay, we get that, but the weather's cooled off, the product's good. I'm just curious, what is it that fans want? So some people have reached out to me on social media saying, well, we haven't heard from the school. I'm an alum and I don't hear any engagement. You don't see a lot of push in that regard. Fair enough, but it is in the news. That the Hornets are winning. It's been discussed on this show. It's on social media. It's been in the Sacramento Bee. It's on all the local TV stations. So, beyond apathy, and I get it. It's so Sac State playing teams like Northern Colorado. Where is Northern Colorado, and what is their mascot? I could see people. Okay, not a lot of familiarity there. Well, just go out for the good time. Go out for a good time. And I know years ago, they used to have beer sales at Sac State games, and people would go out for the beer. and there's a football game in the backdrop. I don't know if they still sell beer. Maybe that's Damien. That's why he was late. He was over there.
No, look, they got
Oh, I know why he was late. I know why.
Man, I walked straight through the parking lot,
That's
man.
what
No stops, man. No stops. Straight through the parking lot.
This is a true story, Joe. We saw Kenny. Kenny got our attention. This little area we were standing in. Didn't see Kenny for another 35 minutes. Don't know where he went. He was about 15 feet from me, Joe. Just disappeared.
Well, look,
I don't know where he went.
He's a man of the people. He's signing autographs. And how do I get into broadcasting? I want to be the next Damien Barling. He goes, I'm Kenny Carraway. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was probably at the Starbucks truck. They had a Starbucks truck out there. Starbucks, they everywhere.
They had a longer line at the Starbucks truck than to get into the game.
Yeah, no.
Like everybody walked in and went straight to Starbucks.
It's a good product. It's a fun team. Got a lot of local recruits. UC Davis has a nice cozy venue at on campus, and they generally sell it out. It's 10,000, so it looks really packed. And I think in one game against San Diego, it was 14,000, so it was a record crowd. And 14,000 at Sac State's venue would still look half empty because it's 22,000 seating. So whatever, we'll see. And a lot of season left, a lot of home games left. The Causeway Classic, UC Davis and Sac State's the end of the regular season, could have a lot of playoff implications, championship implications. That always sells out. But the challenge is to get the other sell out. And Sac State, this is important to know, guys. Sac State cannot even consider trying to move into the Mountain West or any other bigger conference until it averages about 30,000 fans for a number of years.
Goodness gracious.
Or 25 or something. It's a lot more than it is now. So there's no discussion on that, but sometimes people always ask, hey, is the Mountain West fit for Sac State, or can they be in the same conference as San Jose State and Nevada and Fresno State? You just got to get a bigger venue and bigger attendance.
Joe, you brought up a good point, which is a killer. And I don't know if there's much they can do about it football wise. I always used to have these conversations with our guy, Coach Katz, about it basketball wise. But no disrespect to the Big Sky, but I always thought that was a tough sell when you're talking about Northern Colorado and Montana and all this other stuff. And like I said, football wise, I don't know if there's much you can do about it because of the CSUs and UCs not having as much football. But I always thought basketball wise, man, get them in the Big West. Have them playing.
Same with baseball.
Yeah.
Same with baseball. And
I don't know if they can do anything with football, but I always thought eventually they're going to have to make a move out of that Big Sky conference.
I agree. And baseball has done really well under Reggie Christensen at Sacramento State. I've been to the NCAA regionals a few times. I did a story on that last spring. I said, this is the next step. Put them in the Big West. And I think that's going to happen in the next couple of years. Sac State basketball, you mentioned David Patrick. What an impressive guy. What an impressive coach. All kinds of new players coming in. The whole key is, does he stick around? Because he's going to be a hot commodity. And I know he's got a nice friendship with Mike Brown, the Kings coach, which is kind of cool. And this is, I think it's the most anticipated Sac State basketball season that I can remember. And I've been at the B for 30-something years. But they don't have a very good venue. Your studio seats more than Sac State's venue, and that's not on the coach. There needs to be a deep-pocketed donor. If somebody's got $120 million stashed in their pocket and they want to hand out a little bit, then Sac State needs it. UC Davis got great facilities. This is not a college town at Sac State like in Eugene or Boise State and things like that, or even UC Davis to that regard. But no, that's the other plan, is to try to get into those conferences. And the Big West does not have college football. That's Long Beach State, Fullerton, programs like that. There's no football. Those have died off over the decades.
Yeah, Cal State East Bay. We used to have football. We ain't got no football no more.
Well, they had basketball. They had men's basketball.
I wasn't gonna say, but Joe D, we out there.
Caraway's
go Pioneers, Pioneer Pete. I see you.
Jersey hanging in the rafters.
His mother signs more autographs than Kenny did at East Bay games.
Still does. Sac State 5-0. Sac State 5-0. They're running through opponents, and another week in another Del Oro beating. They beat my beloved Rockland. They beat Granite Bay. They're starting to tack up some quality wins here, Joe.
Yeah, they're really good. There are Sacramento be ranked number 2 team. They're playing at number 1 Folsom for Sierra Foothill League, maybe the championship. Dello has been great since the 80s, and they bring in new coaches and players come in and out, but they just keep winning, and it's grassroots football of physicality, toughness in the trenches, a dual sport quarterback or dual threat quarterback, and Caden Pinnick. He's only a junior, and Folsom is only got 1 loss this year to NorCal number 1 Sarah of San Mateo. So that should be a terrific game. But the other team to look for really is St. Mary's of Stockton. Just beat De La Salle. So that's 5 NorCal losses in the last 13 months for De La Salle after 30 years.
Wow.
With no NorCal losses. It doesn't mean that De La Salle has collapsed, even though they got alums who want a whole scrub over. They need to relax. It's still an excellent product. The rest of Northern California has gotten better. Folsom's been really good and still playing good football. Sarah's never been better, and St. Mary's may have its best team. So I'm amused, if not a bit irked and disgusted by the fan reaction, just because a team struggles a little bit. If you want to go out there and work practice, then go ahead. But otherwise, ripping on coaches because they're not as good as your team from 25 years ago is wasted energy, and those kind of things. I'm all fired up now. And the thing that keeps hovering over us, guys, and we talked about this the last few times, is we got another bad racial incident that marred high school football last week. And this is a shame because we have great football. And we know the story a few weeks ago, Amador up in Sutter Creek, team was disbanded because of a racially charged chat that started with "kill the blacks." Got a hold of a player who said he wanted to do it anonymously because, well, that was a jersey number. And then River Valley of Yuba, after an 0-4 start, had to forfeit the rest of its season because they had a mock slave auction. I don't know how that's funny. I don't know how it's acceptable. I don't know why kids think it's okay. So they suspended that season, which jams up all the other teams in their league schedule, just like Amador, because now they can't replace that game. And so then last week, Del Campo, home of Matt Barnes and Dusty Baker, there is diversity on that roster and on that campus. And Del Campo football played at Vista Del Lago, which is in Folsom. And after a tough loss for Del Campo, they go into the locker room and they come roaring back out because the whiteboard had been marked with vulgarity, racist comments, stupidity, idiocy, and there's a big investigation. So it's assumed, well, there's Vista Del Lago, they're doing it. Well, there's video surveillance that seems to suggest it's middle-aged kids, and we don't know where they're from. But first of all, it's not funny, it's not cool, it's destructive, it's harmful, it's hateful. And if you're on video and you get caught, you're these kids facing expulsion. And then how cool is it going to be? And what makes it worse, guys, is sometimes people defend it as, well, people need to be not so sensitive. That's just a lousy argument. And the coaches at Vista Del Lago and Del Campo don't have any bad history. It's just somebody got into that locker room, and it's awful. And every week we're bracing for this. Every week, is there going to be another incident? It's on social media with the slave auction and group chats, and people are watching. I think I told you guys a couple of weeks ago, if kids aren't mature enough to be on social media representing their school and their team and their family, then stay off social media.
Yeah. But that's a good point that you bring up, Joe, is like these kids are watching. So when you think everything is hidden, or they're not smart enough, and I'm talking about kids as early as 7, 8, 9 years old, like you think, he's just a kid, he doesn't know what's going on. He may not know the premise of what's going on, but he can see what's going on, and they're learning these disgusting behaviors. This isn't something that's taught in school or naturally they know these things. They're seeing these things, and now they think it's funny and it's a joke, to something to play with. And where are the adults to let them know, like, these things are not okay? These things are not funny. This is not anything to play with.
Not. It's awful. Brian Golder is the football coach at Burbank High, 3500 Florin Road. That's what they always like to say. And Burbank's an old Metro League rival of Kenny's McClatchy teams. And he's a black coach, and he's a wonderful guy. And I asked them last week, I said, do your kids, and you got a predominantly black roster, and you got some Polynesian kids on there too, do your kids throw around the N word, whether it's ER at the end or A at the end, too often? He goes, it drives me nuts. He goes, I will stop a practice and say, you are not going to use that word. You are insulting me. You're insulting yourself. Well, coach, we're just fooling around. He goes, it's not allowed. Don't get comfortable with the usage of that word, because one of these days you're going to be in a work setting and you're going to say it thinking you're clowning around, and you're going to get fired. And so he makes kids run laps, and he goes, it's just too common. Another thing that coaches have said is sometimes you have these predominantly white schools playing in football, and they're calling each other the N-word back and forth, and there isn't a black kid on the entire roster. Well, that's just another measure of idiocy, where this word is supposed to sound cool or funny. It's not. And so kudos to coaches who are educating their players. It's not funny. You have no idea. Do you say it around your parents, your grandparents? Oh no, coach, I would never do that. Well, then don't do it around the football team either.
Right.
Don't do it on campus. Don't do it on the bus. Don't do it in the quad. Don't do it anywhere. And I think that's a great message, well beyond football.
We appreciate you as always, Joe D. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Joe, one question, real quick, just one question.
Yes, sir.
Joe, my McClatchy Lions, it's been tough. I mean, it's basically like we're playing in the SEC. I mean, we got Grant one day, we got Laguna Creek coming up,
Monterey Trail.
I mean, poor McClatchy. It's like we're in the SEC. We just trying to keep our head above water. But we're going off of Laguna Boulevard this Friday. We're going into Laguna Creek. And I smell upset coming, Joe. Tell me an upset is coming from a McClatchy Lions.
I think Kenny Caraway is going to be upset when Laguna Creek probably runs some circles. And that game will be at Casumas River College, by the way. So if Kenny shows up off of Laguna Boulevard and say, hey, where's the action? You got to go a couple miles. But Zach Kuda is the coach at McClatchy. Good guy. He says, we have a sleeping giant here. Great academic standing, good enrollment. We need to get more players involved, more roster numbers up, and I think he's right. And I think better days ahead, because Kenny, the school is still an academic powerhouse, still big enrollment, 2,000. But football's tough, man. If you don't have 30 guys in varsity football, if you're doing it with 22, 20 guys, and McClatchy had to forfeit a game a couple weeks ago against Grant because they didn't have enough players. And that's heartbreaking. So they got the right coach. We got Hughes Stadium as a home venue, and you got Kenny Caraway as an alum going to come by and root for the guys. It can't get better than that.
Restore the roar. Rawr.
Jesus. All right. Thanks, Joe. I'm sorry you had to hear that roar.
Oh, there's poor Damien. Damien, where are you from? Where's your high school?
I went to El Camino High School, so that's nothing I'm pumping.
Well, there we go. So I can tell you right now that McClatchy would beat El Camino.
Let's go.
Oh, I don't have any doubt about that. You want? Yeah, I'm trying. I'm all right. We'll let it go. We'll let it go. I ain't gonna say that because, I had some one-liners we could have thrown out there. Just let them live.
What, El Camino versus the Chiefs? Is that what you're going to say?
No. I was going to revert back to some stories that Joe was telling us before McClatchy came up. So we'll let those live out there. Yeah. I was the poorest kid at El Camino by far. That when I went there, that was most of that school had some money, and I did not. I was the poorest kid there.
What year did you graduate, El Camino?
98.
98. So that was it was well after Derek Lee played.
Yeah, I was after Derek Lee. I was after Ebro. There was no. I mean, Brandon Laird. Even that was after Brandon.
Yeah, I remember him. They got a new football field out there finally after we got run into the ground, school bonded measure. But El Camino is actually doing some pretty good things in football and sports as well. So the old schools are hanging in there. We appreciate that.
El Camino was a dominant women's basketball program. That's what they were. Coach Baxter.
Yes, Bill Baxter was their coach. Yep. And he's an amazing story. He used to coach. He was a swimming water polo guy. And so like in 1988 or so, those schools said, we need a girls basketball coach. I don't know anything about basketball. And he goes, we can't win a game. All right. And then he became the winningest coach in Sac Joaquin section history with 600 wins. And then he steps down to be an assistant coach at Sacramento State some 7-8 years ago. And the Eagles have collapsed.
Yeah, he was a really, really good coach. They played in the state championship, I think, 3 of my 4 years in high school.
Yeah.
They were
really good.
legit.
94, they had a 36-0 team
Yep.
that beat Windward of LA for the state championship. Windward was 33-0, and it was like a 40-point win. I'm like, this is a great team. And they were all homegrown kids who grew up in that program, and that's all been broken. It's hard to get it going again.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Joe. Thanks as always,
man,
my
Joe.
brother.
Thanks, guys. Always good.